Welcome back to Outperform the Storm. I'm Martin Soorjoo, performance strategist. If you're still performing on the outside, still hitting targets, still carrying the load, but inside you feel exhausted, irritable, less sharp, and more easily drained, then this is for you. Because this episode is about one of the most pernicious performance problems that founders, leaders, and professionals are currently facing. One that hides behind competence, that's often missed until the bill arrives. It goes by the name of shadow burnout. You're still functioning, still delivering, still showing up, but your system is quietly crumbling beneath you. Standard burnout advice is irrelevant and ineffective for people who are leading and building, because it assumes you can just slow down, step back, do less. That sounds appealing, but for many it's fantasy. The race is on, the pressure is real, the pace is not easing up anytime soon, so you can't afford to take your foot off the gas. Some believe they have to accelerate, and maybe they are right. So this episode is not about telling the driven to drive slower. It's not about wellness. It's not about retreat. It's about something more relevant and more useful. How to keep performing at a high level under sustained pressure without frying the system that makes that performance possible. In other words, how to run hot without burning out. In this episode, I'll outline a simple 3-part framework to help you do that. Now, there's a massive difference between working hard and quietly destroying your edge. Many people confuse the two. I know this personally. There have been many periods in my life where I've had to operate under serious, sustained pressure. High-stakes legal work when I was a lawyer for 15 years, building a company when I was a startup co-founder, coaching while carrying pressure behind the scenes, managing 2 serious life-threatening conditions, and rebuilding our home after it was destroyed by a devastating fire that almost killed us. And doing all of that with a physiology that doesn't give me much room for maneuver. So I don't have the luxury of glorifying exhaustion, and that's not what I'm about to do. If I ignore the signals for too long, there's a price which can be deadly. So I was forced to learn something a lot of driven people learn too late. The goal is not to become softer. The goal is to become better at restoration. Not to lower ambition, but to reduce internal drag. Not necessarily to work few hours, but to make sure that the hours that you do work are supported by a system that can actually sustain them. And that's a very different conversation, which starts with a reframe. Burnout is not always an hours worked problem. Very often, it's a restoration problem. There's an assumption often that the answer is less work, and sometimes that's true. But the issue is often deeper. It's, are you carrying too much stress and pressure continuously? Are you recovering badly, sleeping poorly, restoring poorly, performing with degraded hardware, and then using willpower to compensate for a system that's quietly losing capacity? So what does shadow burnout actually look like? Well, it looks like someone who's still performing, but whose thinking's getting slower. Someone who can still handle urgency, but struggles with more depth, who is more reactive than they used to be, less patient, more brittle, more dependent on caffeine, pressure, or sheer force of will to get moving. Sound familiar? Sleep may not look catastrophic on paper, but they wake up unrefreshed. They're still in the game, but everything's costing them more. Focus costs more, decisions cost more, emotional control costs more. And because they're still functioning, they keep telling themselves they're fine, but they're not. They're just not down yet. So here's where I part company with most of the burnout conversation. I don't think the answer for the driven is simply to work less. Not in the real world. Not in the environment we're in now. The better question is, how do you carry more load with less internal damage? How do you stay sharp while the pressure stays high? How do you preserve the edge instead of trading it away for one more week of brute force? The solution requires 3 levers. The first lever is to optimize restoration, not just time off. And this is where the conversation around sleep is often flawed. People will often reduce it to one crude metric: hours. You need 8 hours. Maybe, that'd be great. But it may also be unrealistic at times. What matters just as much, and sometimes more, is the quality of that sleep. 6 hours with strong deep sleep and REM can be more restorative than 8 hours of fragmented crappy sleep. And to be clear, that's not the goal. But it's important to understand and take into account the quality metric. because deep sleep and REM are where critical restoration occurs. That's where the brain clears debris, where memory consolidates, where emotional load gets processed, where yesterday's strain gets repaired. So don't just think about sleep as simply time in bed. Ask a better question. Is my sleep restoring me? Because poor sleep equals poor recovery. And poor recovery is one of the foundations of shadow burnout, which is why sleep optimization and other restoration practices are critical. Not as some biohacker vanity metric, but as a performance strategy. If your restoration quality improves, your decision-making improves, your emotional control improves, your clarity improves, as does your tolerance for friction. That's performance logic. And for more on this, listen to episode 33 of Outperform the Storm. The second lever is to stop carrying stress and pressure forward from one scene to the next. Most people don't burn out because of one catastrophic event. They burn out through accumulation, from meeting to meeting, problem to problem, call to call. The stressful event finishes, but the body doesn't calm down and simply carries over. The stress and pressure carries forward to the next call, meeting, event, and then again, and the cycle repeats. And by the end of the day, your nervous system is still behaving as though the threat is live. Chest tight, jaw locked, breathing shallow, mind racing, prefrontal cortex partially offline. That's costly and damaging. And that's why the ability to downshift fast matters. And for more on this, listen to episode 35 with some practical advice. A 1-minute reset after a brutal call, or a reset 90 seconds before the next meeting. A quick breathing intervention when you feel irritation rising. Downshifting isn't a luxury, it's central to sustained high performance. Now turning to the third lever. Stop treating every problem like it's high stakes. Many driven people are not burning out because they're working hard on important things. They're burning out because they respond to everything at full intensity. I know that one well. Every email is accompanied by adrenaline. Every delay gets emotional expenditure. Every meeting is treated like it matters equally. And that's a losing game. You need to be far more selective about where you spend your intensity. You need surge capacity. But surge capacity only works if you reserve it for moments that actually matter. The board meeting, the high-stakes negotiation, the difficult conversation, the real inflection point. Not inbox churn, not noise, not every Slack message that lands with unnecessary urgency. This is one of the most important disciplines in sustained performance. Run hot when the moment requires it, but don't live there all day. Because when everything gets maximum intensity, nothing gets your best. Constant intensity destroys your edge. So let me bring these three levers together. If you want to run hot without burning out, optimize restoration quality, downshift between rounds, and deploy your intensity selectively. That's the framework. The driven are not typically chasing perfect health. They're not trying to become wellness influencers. They're trying to stay sharp enough, strong enough, clear enough, and durable enough to keep performing. That's a different standard. It's a different mindset that requires a different approach. Not perfection, but function. Rest that actually restores. A nervous system that can come back online quickly. Discernment to know what deserves full force and what doesn't. That's how you stay in the fight without silently eroding yourself. So let me close with this. If you're running hot right now, respect your hardware, because ambition is only as good as the system carrying it. Shadow burnout is what happens when the outside keeps performing and the inside keeps paying. Ignore that for long enough and the bill always requires payment. This is trainable, and you can improve the quality of your restoration. You can get better at downshifting between rounds. And yes, you can be more selective about what gets your intensity. You can build a system that lets you run hard without self-sabotage. That's the edge. Not less ambition, but better regulation, better restoration, better allocation of force. So here's a challenge for this week. Run a shadow burn audit. Ask yourself 3 questions. Where is my restoration weakest? Where am I carrying stress and pressure forward? And where am I wasting high-intensity energy on low-value noise? Pick one, not 3, just one, and fix it for the next 7 days. If this episode describes someone you know who's carrying the load while quietly running on fumes and burning out, send them a link to it. They may need it more than they realize. Thanks for joining me. I'm Martin Soorjoo, and this is Outperform the Storm.